Welcome everyone to the 2024 Summer Internship Program virtual meetup. Uh, Today, Hugo Watanuki will be presenting. He is the manager of community tech programs for HPCC systems, and he is the overseer of the internship. So most of you have received either an email from myself or him concerning projects or applying to the internship. So without further ado, I'm going to let him start. And after he is finished, we will have time for Q&A afterwards. So if you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and he'll either get to them during his presentation or afterwards. We will also have time for that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to get myself off of here and get you on here focused. So thank you so much, Hugo, for being here, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, George, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to see such an expressive participation from our student community. And my primary goal here today is to make sure that by the end of this session, you have a very good level of understanding about our internship program. But most importantly, this is a session made for you. So this session is being recorded, so you can review it afterwards. We'll also be sharing these slides in our student wiki, but we'll welcome any questions you might have or any concerns you might have about the program. Please, as George mentioned, feel free to post them on the chat. And we'll also have some time for Q&A at the end. So we'll be more than happy to clarify any concerns or any questions you might have about this opportunity, okay? So with no further ado, let's get into the agenda of the meetup. So basically what I'll be covering today are three main topics, I would say. I will start talking a little bit about our company, our business context, because I think it's important for you to understand or clearly understand the relationship between the different concepts and brands that are referenced during the internship program. You might be seeing, the internship being advertised as an HPCC systems internship. But as you can see, both myself and George and my colleagues here are from LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and we are all part of a larger corporate group. So I think it's important for you to have a good understanding of how all those different concepts and brands tied up together. Then I will talk a little bit about the technology. Of course, the internship is all centered around the HPCC systems technology. So it's important for you to understand what the technology is about and what it does. And then, of course, most of the content here will be around the logistics of the internship program. So I'll be talking about the day-to-day activities, the types of projects the students complete with us, and of course, how to apply and important dates that you need to keep in mind, all right? So let's get started here. And let's discuss a little bit about our company and our business context, okay? So as I mentioned before, the HPCC Systems Internship Program is part of one of the offerings from our academic collaboration program. And the HPCC Systems Academic Collaboration Program is actually part of a larger company called LexisNexis Risk Solutions, which in its turn is part of an even larger corporate group called RELX. So this slide tries to put all those pieces together. RELX itself is a major global provider of information-based analytics. It has a strong presence around the world. We have offices in more than 40 countries. And RELX operates in 4 major markets using, I would say, 4 separate entities. So as you can see here on the right side of this slide, we have sister companies under RELX. One of them is Elsevier, a traditional book editing company on the scientific field. But we also have a company that is focused on managing conferences and events like symposiums. It's called Red Exhibitions. On the right side of the slide, you can see the sister companies that are more focused on data analysis. So we have LexisNexis Legal and Professional and LexisNexis Risk Solutions. LexisNexis Legal and Professional, as the name implies, is really focused on the legal market. And LexisNexis Risk Solutions helps companies in different segments, such as insurance, healthcare, government, and finance, to make data-based decisions to manage risk, right? So that's more or less the difference between those sister companies and how they all tie together under the RELX Corporation, right? Now, what does LexisNexis Risk Solutions actually do on a day-to-day basis? So I like to say that LexisNexis Risk Solutions is really focused on providing customer solutions that fulfill their needs on managing risk, okay? So for instance, if you are a car insurance company and you have the need of establishing fair prices for your insurance policies, you might not be willing to rely only on demographic data around about your customers. Let's say their age, their income, or where they live, right? Because that doesn't give you the full picture of all the risk associated with that driver. Perhaps you would be willing to leverage a much larger amount of data. For instance, what is the driving behavior of that customer if we have access to that data, right? Let's say telematics data about the driving behavior of that customer. Similarly, if you are a financial company and you need to assess the risk of a loan request, you might not be willing to rely just on basic demographic data about the requester, but you might be interested, for instance, on analyzing all the past history or the financial history of that customer, how much financial movements that customer is having on the past 6 months, what is the trend behind those movements? Is this customer in a good shape, financially speaking, or not? All those scenarios requires a lot of data, technology that is capable of processing that data, and of course, skilled individuals who can actually manipulate the data and analyze that data. So at the end of the day, what this slide is trying to convey is that LexisNexis Risk Solutions relies on 5 main assets to achieve those solutions. First, we combine our very powerful data repository. We have one of the largest data repositories comprised of public and proprietary records all around the world. More or less, it contains 12 petabytes of data, just so you know. And then we have developed over the years our own big data technology to manipulate and query that data. That's where HPCC systems comes into play. Why we have to do that? Because by the time we start facing those challenges, other technologies that we see these days were not even around, right? So we had to come up with our own development, which is now open source. But just the technology and data is not sufficient to manage that challenge, right? So over the years, we also have developed our own clustering algorithm. So we are able, for instance, of using the data from these repositories, extract the entities being individuals and companies, and associating around those entities all their attributes, which in its turn can be used to start linking those different entities. Okay, so that's a very powerful technology that we have developed. And once all your data is linked, we have been using powerful machine learning algorithms and AI to actually extract insights and non-trivial knowledge from that data, which combined with our industry-specific expertise, help us at the end of the day provide those customer-focused solutions that I've just mentioned a few minutes ago. Okay, so in a nutshell, this is the business model of how LexisNexis Risk Solutions operates. And of course, you can see the role played by HPCC systems in this ecosystem. Okay. Now, before we move on into the technology itself, and if you're wondering, okay, so where do I actually see LexisNexis Risk Solutions products or HPCC being used? This slide captures some of the customers we have all around the world. And as I mentioned before, we have a very strong presence on the financial market, especially around the top 10 banks. We have a strong presence on the Fortune 500 companies and, of course, insurance carriers and government agencies as well. Right? So this is just to give you an overall picture of our business context and where HPCC systems is being used these days. Right? Now, before we move on, let me see if we have any questions already in the chat. I see a lot of introductions, but no questions so far. Okay, I think we can go ahead. And again, remember, feel free to interact, make any comments, any concerns you have. I'll be happy to reply them as they show up. Now, let's move into the technology, right? So we have seen that HPCC systems is one of the primary elements supporting that business model. But what is HPCC systems exactly, right? HPCC systems stands for High Performance Computing Clusters, okay? And for those who might be new to the concept, think of HPCC systems as a collection of computing nodes or machines that are orchestrated together to manipulate large amounts of data, as we have seen on the previous examples. HPCC systems is now completely open source for the past 12 years, 13 years now. And if you want to compare or start thinking where HPCC systems as a framework or platform falls into the IT industry, HPCC systems is from the same family, I would say, or class of platforms or other big data platforms such as Hadoop and Spark. Okay, but HPCC systems provides a very unique value when you are interested on quickly developing and maintaining production-ready solutions that are based on massive amounts of data. So that's a very specific or very unique area that we can provide significant value. I won't get into the details of the technology itself. That's not the intent, but this slide tries to capture all the main features of the technology. We have a very comprehensive website that I'm listing on this slide, and I welcome everyone to access that website if you've not already done so. But I want to call your attention to a couple of aspects around the technology that are related to the internship program. First of all, HPCC systems is a completely cloud-native architecture those days. So if you're a student interested on getting some experience, hands-on experience on cloud-native concepts, this could be a good opportunity for you. If you are on the data science universe, be aware we have a very comprehensive machine learning library that you can explore with large amounts of data. And for all of you interested on the internship program, be aware that HPCC systems has its own programming language. It's called ECL, Enterprise Control Language, which is a very high level and descriptive language, conceptually similar to SQL if you want to reference, but optimize it to be way faster than SQL. Why I'm bringing that up? Because ECL knowledge, it's a good asset for all of you interested on the internship program. And we do have a very comprehensive set of online classes, free online classes on our website that you can consume and learn ECL from, okay? Now, I know this is all conceptual, but maybe a use case will help everyone understand the power of HPCC systems. So I like to share this insurance fraud use case. It's a real use case from a couple of years ago from an insurance company that was trying to assess whether certain car insurance claims were actually a fraud. So this graph here represents a series of car accidents. So each red square here with an A is a car accident. And the edges on those vertices are actually individuals associated to those car accidents. And that insurance company was suspecting that those car accidents had some kind of collusion behind it, because they were all happening within the same geographical region, and they used to involve much more individuals in the car accidents than the average, which of course results in higher claims. But when they try to assess those car accidents and connect them using just the data they had internally, they could only establish this very soft link here between two car accidents. That's as far as they could get with their own data. So they gave us that data, and we processed that data using HPCC systems in a process that we call data enrichment pipeline. Okay. What happens on that data enrichment pipeline? Well, we start by extracting from all those big data sources that I've mentioned before, both from structured and unstructured data. We start extracting what are the entities and their attributes. Okay, entities being, again, individuals or companies, and their attributes could be, for instance, their property records, their vehicle records from the DMV, their tax records. Okay, so we need to start extracting those entities from the sources, and as we do that, we, through a process called profiling and cleaning, we can have a better understanding of all the entities and attributes contained on those data sources. Okay. Once we have gone through that first stage, and of course, since all this data is coming from different sources, they have different formats, we need to start standardizing the data, making sure, for instance, all the names are spelled equally, independent of their sources, dates, phone numbers are all matching the same standard. And once we are able to do that, we can actually associate the entities with their attributes. So each entity gets their own attributes. And now, as you reach that stage, you can actually start exploring patterns or similarities among attributes from different entities, initially in different entities. So for instance, you might notice now that apparently two individuals with different names are sharing the same address. Well, if they are sharing the same address, there is potentially a relationship between the two of them. They could be sharing the same household, or they could be willing to commit fraud and just passing a fake identity, right? But see, as you start linking the data now, and that's where our clustering algorithm that I was referring a few slides back comes into play, you can start extracting knowledge that is not trivial. It has been obtained from a very large amount of data, and you can build very powerful social graphs. So let's say, for instance, on that car insurance collusion example, you can start using, for instance, an API to pass the individual associated with the car accident, and you can build a social graph from that individual. Okay, how that's possible? Because all the data has been manipulated using one of the components from HPCC systems, a cluster called Thor, right, that is responsible for supporting data engineers, profiling, standardizing, and linking the data. And once the data is fully linked, it is made available in a second cluster from HPCC systems called Roxy, that allows individuals using APIs or batch services or visualization solutions to query that data at fast speed, right? Because if I'm only able to extract that information after a couple of weeks, it won't help me. I need to have sub-second response time if possible, right? Okay, good. So once we have processed the data, the same graph now looked like this. And basically what you're seeing here is the same graph, but now with the addition of the primary and second degree relatives from those individuals. So you can see now that the graph is much more populated, and they were able to actually identify two families that were responsible or behind those car accidents, they were orchestrating those car accidents using second-degree relatives because they were clever enough to know that the insurance company could easily tie their car accidents if they use first-degree relatives. And that's the problem with criminals. They are smart enough to understand how the basic systems work. So we can use big data, large amounts of data. It becomes harder for them to hide, I would say, their criminal behavior, right? Okay, good. So I hope that by now, after covering those two topics, you have a better understanding of our business context, what HPCC system is, and its primary use case. Why? Because if this is the type of environment, this is the type of solution, this is the type of data or technology you want to know more about it, that's where you want to perhaps start your career, the HPCC Systems Internship Program might be a perfect fit for you, okay? And what is the HPCC Systems Internship Program? Basically, and this flyer tries to cover most of the characteristics of the program, basically is a 12-week paid and remote program that takes place over the summer in the US, where you will be working with a mentor. It's a mentor-based program. You will be working with a mentor to develop a project related to the HPCC systems technology. What is the end goal of that project? Make some sort of contribution to the open source community, okay? So everything that you use during the internship is open source, public data. So the end goal is for you to actually contribute with the open source community. And of course, throughout that process, you'll be acquiring skills and preparing yourself to start your career in that area or in the IT industry as well. Okay? What are the requirements for the program? Okay, basically two that I'm highlighting here. You need to be a student authorized to work during the summer. And by student, I mean anyone from high school up to PhD levels, including undergraduate, master's students, and so forth. And of course, depending on your academic level, you might have different requirements, or you might need to fulfill different requirements as to when you are authorized to work 40 hours per week. So for high schoolers, it depends on their age. Different counties or states have different school calendars. But at the end of the day, we are usually flexible to accommodate your own needs. If you're an international student, all you need to do is apply for CPT or OPT. And as soon as your school approves your work authorization, you can apply into the internship as well. Okay. And the second requirement here, we need to know from you up front, what is that you're trying to achieve as part of the internship? And we do that via something that we call a proposal. A proposal is nothing more than a document where you state what kind of project you want to develop during the internship, the deliverables of that project, and the timeline. I will go back to that point in a few minutes, but I just wanted to let you know that's a very important prerequisite for you to apply. Also, be aware we have a very comprehensive student wiki covering all the details of the program and including historical information. So if you want to see, for instance, what are the projects that the students have completed in previous years, they are all there. What the students thought about their experience, it's all there. Who are the mentors? It's all there. And you can access the wiki using this URL or the QR code that I posted right there. And I know George also listed the wiki in the chat at the beginning of the session. So at the end, we'll also remind you of that asset. If you have any questions about the internship program, be aware we have a dedicated email inbox or address. Feel free to email us your question, your concern, and we'll be happy to address your question, okay? All right, let me look at the chat. I know I covered a lot of information in the past few minutes. Let's see if we have any questions. Do you have daily time so I can make sure to stop by? Oh, okay, so that's about the UJ hacks. Okay, good. Can students from India join the internship? Yes, we have been receiving students from India in the past few years. It's always a good and a strong presence in our program. There are currently 10 projects posted for submitting proposals. Are multiple students assigned to these projects, or there are only 10 slots from interns? Very good question, James. So the 10 project ideas you are seeing on the wiki right now are the 10 ideas we are suggesting, okay? Remember, you don't need to be restricted to those. You can propose something from your own, and be aware that's a very live website, in the sense that we keep posting and replacing projects as our research and development team comes up with an idea. So just so you know, we do have additional ideas brewing right now. They will be posted on the wiki as they are confirmed, solid confirmed. So I invite you to come back to that wiki over time. And then as answering your question, we don't have a fixed number of interns. It all depends on how many proposals we get. But historically, we offer between 10 to 15 slots. Okay, that's usually our capacity. Dinesh is asking what happens after the internship. Any prospect to full-time position post-internship term? Very good question, Dinesh. So bear in mind, the primary purpose of the internship program, the HPCC Systems Internship Program, is to first contribute to your professional growth in terms of getting a starting point in your career. And secondly, contribute to the open source community. We don't have full-time positions directly associated with the internship positions, but we usually direct the students who are successful during the internship to positions that are open across our larger organization environment. And that's why it's good for you to understand that HPCC Systems falls under all those different sister companies and under the RELX group. So historically, we have been referring our students to those full-time positions. Also, in the past 2 years, or actually that's the second year, where we are offering a graduate program for students that have recently graduated. And we are now starting to also see an influx from students from past interns into that program as well. Okay. Kartikeya is asking if high school students who are international and not physically present in the USA are eligible for the internship. I would say yes, Kartikeya, but we need to know where physically you are located, because then we'll look what potential partners we have in that region to support you in terms of hiring. India, okay. So I don't see a problem. We just need to be careful what are the requirements for a high school student in India to be authorized to work 40 hours per week. So once we have that clarified, I don't see any other constraints to begin with. All right, so I see some other questions are there, but I'll come back to them in a minute. Let's move into the next slides. Maybe some of those questions will also be answered with the content that I have here to present. So you might be wondering what types of projects the students complete with us. And I have selected here a couple of examples just to make it more concrete for us to understand. So for instance, Arun is a good example. He was a master's student who joined the program in 2022, and he was really focused on data science. So he decided to select a public data set containing records from individuals with diabetes from the Center of Disease Control. And he explored that data set using one of our machine learning libraries called Causality Toolkit. And he was interested in understanding whether he could establish a causal model for what's actually being responsible for diabetes on those individuals, just providing the data, no theoretical background. Because if he was able to find that algorithm, maybe that algorithm would be helpful to help identify other diseases by looking at large volumes of data. So at the end of the day, he was able to establish the causal model that we are seeing the right, associating elements or attributes such as individuals' height, weight, age, and their diabetes status. Okay, so that's a good example of a data science focused project. If you are more, let's say, on the quality assurance side of the picture, you want to be a QA, but also with some DevOps capabilities. Naiveda's project is a good example. So Naiveda is an undergraduate student from Georgia State University, and she joined us last year to help develop a test suite for the Roxy cluster running Kubernetes. So as you might imagine, these days we can run HPCC systems in different cloud providers using Kubernetes. And each cloud provider has its own, their own solutions, their own offerings in terms of storage, networking, compute nodes. So Naiveda's project was really centered on Azure, understanding if I'm a company and I'm willing to use a Roxy cluster on Azure, does it really make a difference if I select premium storage versus regular storage, a certain compute node versus another compute node? And her project was actually a winning poster from last year's competition on the platform enhancement area. Right? And last but not least, I would like to share a project from a high school student. Yes, like I've mentioned, we do accept high school students. And Ryan Rao is a high school student from Palm Beach County in South Florida. He decided to develop a project exploring how HPCC systems could be leveraged using storage solutions provided by AWS, Amazon Web Services. So he basically explored how to configure HPCC systems or how to deploy HPCC systems using storage solutions such as Amazon Elastic File Systems or high-end storage solutions like AWS FSx. All the contributions from Ryan are actually available on the GitHub. So if you are an HPCC systems user now, you can basically clone his repo and deploy HPCC systems on Azure using those storage solutions. And Ryan was really someone new to those concepts. So you can see how the learning curve can happen during your proposal preparation and the project execution. At the end of the day, or at the end of the project, Ryan was able to really contribute with the community, even starting relatively fresh to those technologies. Okay. Now, okay, you might be wondering, since you already know what the program is about and what types of projects the students accomplish with us, how does, the internship evolves on a day-to-day basis? How can I come or start from, from my starting point, ground zero, and end up providing such a valuable contribution to the community? This slide tries to capture how we approach the internship project from a life cycle perspective. We try to divide internship into separate phases. Of course, they do not have the same duration, but it's important for you to understand that even before your internship starts, even before day one, once you are accepted, we will be working with you to make sure you have all your infrastructure ready, your accesses, and the training resources so you can start preparing yourself even before the internship starts. We call this phase onboarding and welcome. And a couple of weeks before you actually start, we'll invite you for a welcome meeting where we'll cover all those details. Okay, that's a very important element of the program. Now, once you join the team, day one, that's when we start the development phase. And that's why it's important for you to develop your proposal, a detailed proposal, because the more detailed your proposal is, chances are you will start the development phase already hit the road running, I would say. How does the development phase evolves over time, or how does that actually unfolds? Well, on a daily basis, you will be meeting with your mentor. Remember, this is a remote program. So every day you'll be meeting with your mentor for a couple of minutes at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day to make sure you have all your resources, all the work outlined for that certain day. And that will keep happening throughout the entire period. You might find that sometimes the daily meetings might not be needed. You and the mentor will be adjusting that, but be aware you will be in close contact with your mentor. The development phase is also the phase where most of your code development will happen. All the testing and troubleshooting that is part of the day-to-day life of a software developer, I would say. And we also encourage you to write a blog report, keep a blog report of all your experiences throughout the internship, because that will be helpful not only for your own learning, your own reflection, but can also be used afterwards. If you decide, for instance, to apply for a college, a full-time position, and etc. You will see on the wiki how we advertise those over time. And then, usually on the 2 last weeks of the internship, that's when we start the completion phase. Our focus here is to make sure you're checking all the code, all the documentation you have prepared is ready. And we also start advertising your achievements. And we do that internally and externally. Internally at the company, we invite you to present your outcomes to our research and development team. So that's a very unique experience where you'll be getting constructive feedback from experienced professionals in this industry. And we also ask you to develop a poster, just like those posters that you submit for conferences and symposiums, because at the end of the year, or actually close to October timeframe, we invite all the interns back to join us on our annual conference, the HPCC Systems Community Day. And during that conference, all the posters, including the ones from the interns, from our academic partners, they compete for prizes, monetary awards, actually. And interns are also encouraged to give a talk about the project. So that's usually an experience that interns value a lot, because it's an opportunity for them to develop soft skills as well, on top of all the hard skills they have acquired throughout the internship. Okay. Good. So I hope by now you have a clear understanding of the life cycle. And then the last bit of this presentation actually focuses on the application process, which is an important aspect of the program. So this slide over here tries to guide you through the application process. So let's say by now you're starting to be, or starting to considering applying to this internship. Where do you start? First of all, select your idea, right? I was replying some questions on the chat. The very starting point is make sure you have an idea in mind. It could be an idea from the list of projects that we published, as I was replying to the question in the chat, or it could be your own idea, okay? If it's an idea from your own, just remember it needs to contribute to the HPCC Systems open source community. That's the only requirement. Once you have your idea selected, you need to start writing your proposal, okay? So I promised that I was going to come back to this topic, and now is the time for us to discuss this process. First of all, we don't have a formal template for the proposal. That's not our intent. We are not here to apply an exam on all of you. We just want you to tell us in a stricter way, what are the deliverables of your project and what is the timeline you are considering for your project. Ideally on a weekly basis, because it's a short internship. If you leave to reflect on those elements by the time you start, you will consume a large portion of your internship with all that planning, which will leave you with even less time to actually produce something and acquire knowledge. Now, second aspect, we don't expect you to do all this work by yourself. By the time you select your project, if it's a project from our list, you will see the name of the mentor already there. Get in touch with the mentor, share your initial idea, and you and the mentor will be working together to develop the ideal proposal. So that's how the program actually is meant to be. If you have an idea from your own, remember to reach out to us on that mailbox that I included on the presentation of the internship program, because based on your suggestion, I will look for a mentor that has the knowledge required to support you. In either way, we don't expect you to submit something without working with the mentor. If you end up doing that's fantastic, but just bear in mind, most of the students, if not their majority, need the support from the mentor to come up with a good proposal, and that's perfectly fine. That's the way we envision the program. Okay. All right. Now that you have your proposal ready, it's time to submit your application, and you do that using the RELX Careers website. That's why it was important for me to tell you all about the business context, because you'll be applying through the RELX website. This QR code will take you straight to the job posting for the internship. Remember to submit your proposal and your resume. And I remember someone was asking about full-time positions. Your application will be there in the larger RELX database. So if there are future opportunities, full-time opportunities, be aware that your data will also be there to be leveraged. Okay. All right. And then real quick here on the last slide of my presentation, so I can go back to the questions. Important dates for you to guide yourself. We are accepting applications right now. The deadline is March 22nd, a bit more than 2 months. So it's the ideal time frame for you to start working on your project idea. But be aware, we don't wait until the deadline to start making offers to the students. So for instance, if you are a student interested on project A and you submit it and you start talking to the mentor of the project A and you submit a very nice application or proposal, and the mentor is convinced that you are the right student, you have the right proposal, he or she might decide to make you an offer even before the deadline. And when that happens, the project becomes unavailable on the wiki. So bear in mind, it's a competitive process. So even though we have several weeks until the deadline, don't wait until the last minute to start working on your proposal. Okay. And remember, we'll keep posting new ideas as the time goes by. If you are accepted or not accepted, either way, be aware we'll be sending you notifications starting now all the way through mid-April, which is our deadline for starting hiring and onboarding. So hiring and onboarding will start late April, early May. That's usually the time frame where we officially send you the offer letter. We do background checking and etc. And then the reference start date for the internship this year is May 20, and the end date August 9. But bear in mind, I mentioned reference start and end dates. Why? Because those are the dates we use to plan the program. If for some reason you have a need to start 1 or 2 weeks earlier or later, reach out to us. Usually we are able to accommodate your own needs because our main concern is to make sure that internship overlaps with the time frame when your school is not in session. Okay. Good. So, sorry. That leads us to the last, to the end of the slide presentation. And I hope my picture has not scared anyone, but I will leave here my email address if you want to get in touch after this info session. We still have some time for Q&A, but if you remember of something after the info session, feel free to reach out. And I'm also leaving my LinkedIn profile. So if any one of you wants to be connected with me, I will be really happy to have you as part of my professional network. Okay. Good. So with that, I will come back to the questions in the chat. And again, if you have any concerns, any information, any additional details you might need about the content I just shared, feel free to put your question on the chat. So let me see where I stopped. I think we were talking about questions for internship in India. So yes, we do accept interns from India. And I see a Zoom user has said, I'm a management information systems major. Would this internship be a good fit for me? I would say yes, Zoom user, because you have, from a hard skills perspective, you are in a STEM area. So you have the basic background in computer science, data science, or programming that will be a good starting point for anyone interested in this internship. And I see you have a follow-up comment there. You are interested in using technology to power process and project management. I would say as long as you have large amounts of data in those areas that you want to process using HPCC systems, that would be naturally a good use case. Right? Suhas is asking, can we submit proposals on 2 ideas? Yes, and that's a very I would say smart approach, Suhas, because remember, it's a competitive process. So if you identify 2 or more ideas that attracts you, it's wise to actually submit more than 1 proposal so you have different applications being considered. Be aware you will only be selected for 1 of them, but it also increases your chances. Okay. Let's see, Aviral is making a comment there. I've been working on implementation plan. Is it better to email you with detailed proposal, or should I start with a brief outline of my plan? I'm new to ECL and I'm struggling with the integration part in my implementation plan. Aviral, if you already have something drafted for your idea and it's not part of that list that I've mentioned, yes, please, it's a good time for you to share with us. Based on that initial data, we'll try to pair you with a mentor. If we find the data is not enough, we'll reply back and ask you for more details. That's the worst that can happen. Okay, good question. Avril is asking if it's possible to submit multiple proposals. I think I've already answered that, and the answer is yes. And iPhone is asking, how do we find mentors? A list of mentors and their ongoing projects. So iPhone user, the list of available or project ideas has been shared by George on the chat. If you click on that link, you will see all the project ideas and their mentors. And actually, I mean, since we are on that topic, let me show you real quick where that information is. So this is our wiki, just so you know, wiki.hpccsystems.com. The links George has shared will take you straight to the internship area. And here is the link or the branch where you have the available projects. If you expand that link, you will see some ideas. And I don't know, let's pick an example here. This project. This project to develop an automated ECL watch test suite has the project description, the requirements of the project, the deliverables, the mentor information, skills needed, and resources that will help you have a better understanding of the project. Usually that's enough information for you to have head start. And by the time you feel ready to share something with a mentor, just email them on those email addresses. Okay. Going back to the questions, what if I don't have an individual idea? Well, Bhavya, if you don't have an individual idea, I would suggest you try to select one of the ideas in the wiki. Alternatively, if you want to reach out to me, sharing your background, your career interests, I might be able to give you some suggestions. So I'm more than happy to do that, not only for you, but everyone else on this call. Daniel is asking if each project has only one student and one mentor. Very good question, Daniel. I will start with the mentor part. Usually the projects have a primary mentor and a backup mentor. The interaction with both of them will differ depending on the project. Sometimes the knowledge, we have two mentors because the knowledge is split between the two of them. So you'll be talking to both of them most of the time. In some cases, we have the primary mentor because he will be the one talking to you on a daily basis, and the backup will be there when the first is not there. But we also have a very interesting scenario where you, the student, can suggest a commenter for your project. So let's say you are working on a research project within your college or university, and you want to explore that project from an HPCC systems perspective. You are more than welcome to submit a proposal that suggests your professor or supervisor as a commenter, and we will pair the external mentor, I would say, with our own mentor. So different combinations, Daniel, as long as the outcome, as long as the combination increases the chances of a successful outcome. Catherine, what resources would you suggest to learn the prerequisite skills needed for this application? Catherine, if you are from a STEM area, I would suggest start looking at the resources area on each project description. That's the best starting point for you to acquire the skills needed. Okay. Alicia is asking, I'm a final year in computer science and IT from SA. Would this internship be a fit for me? Yes, like I've mentioned before, if you are from a STEM degree, you pretty much have the background needed. Just make sure the project you select is in line with your skills or background or your aspirations. That's an important point. Don't pick a project at, without any criteria. Selma is asking whether HPCC systems offer unpaid internships. Interesting. Not actually, Selma, but if you want to reach out to me and explain a little bit better about your current condition, maybe I can give you an alternative. But to start with, all our positions are paid. Are students who are studying in the US but are from India allowed to work? Yes. So if they are in the US physically, all they need is work authorization and they are good to apply. Right. Okay, I think there is one last question here from TK. How do we access HPCC systems on our personal device for learning implementation? Because Windows doesn't have direct installation set up from what's available on the main site. Oh, good question, TK. So for everyone awareness, HPCC systems is a client server type of architecture, which means you need to have a client component installed and the server component. The server component has been developed in Linux, but for Linux environments, but you can deploy the server component either using virtual machines on Windows or containers like Docker Desktop. That's one piece. The other piece, the client piece, can be installed, which is basically the IDE where you code ECL, can be installed on Windows, or you can use VS Code, other IDE, for instance, and the client tools. So on the client side, you have the option of using Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever you prefer. So maybe TK, if you want to reach out to me and detail the issue you're having, I might be able to point you to some additional resources. Okay. And then Hamesh was asking, I'm from data analytics. Does this work for me? I think so, Ramesh. I'm not exactly sure what's your focus on data analytics, but the ideal use case for HPCC systems is when you are trying to analyze large amount of data. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And that's, I guess, pretty much it. I don't know, George, have you seen any other questions on top of the ones I just replied? I think
No, and the ones that weren't necessarily pertaining to this, I already responded to the ones about the hackathons and stuff. And also, any KSU people, while we're on that subject, don't forget we will also be there the weekend of February 22nd for the Hackathon for Social Good. So UGA, KSU, and RVCE all are going to be seeing us in some form or capacity in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So
good opportunity to learn HPCC systems and ECL in a fast-paced way. So yeah, for those of you near those colleges, don't miss that opportunity. We have mentors on site helping you. All right. So okay, one last question. I'm from computer science major. I don't have significant coding experience. Is it okay if I keep an idea which needs code significantly and learn the required knowledge while working on it? Siri, nothing against it, but I would say it's a risk decision because you're actually counting on the fact that you will be able to learn everything on the fly. My suggestion to you, since we have 2 months until the deadline, try to explore the required languages on your project. Try to assess the feasibility of you acquiring that knowledge within such a short time frame. And if you feel like it's too risky, pick another project, okay? But don't rely on the day one to actually learn those skills, because again, the assumption is that you are ready to start developing the project on day one and not acquiring knowledge by then, okay? All right, good. I see a lot of people thanking us for the session. So I think this is a good time to wrap up, George. I would like to thank everyone for again dedicating this hour to join us. I hope you have enjoyed the session, and I'm looking forward to seeing your applications and questions coming in. Thank you so much.
thank you. And I'm going to post the links one more time in the chat here at the bottom. So if you missed anything, you can click on that as well. But thank you all for joining us.